My business is really all about the demand chain from the supply chain. There's kind of a break where that happens. What I realized is a lot of what I understood as a direct marketer years ago. I grew up in the direct marketing industry back in the early 1990s. You know, for us, it was all about the location of the recipient of the catalog, right? It was all list-driven. It was very, very measurable, very targetable. And the only thing in the direct marketing industry that would actually ruin your day was something like El Nino that came through and just obliterated the Mississippi River. It really is about finding that affinity of the relationship between the products and the brand and who is going to buy it. And as I went through this whole retail transaction in my life, I went into the POP industry from there. And when I was at DCI Marketing, I asked the gentleman that I was working for the very first day, I said, so John, how do you actually measure your success? He says, well, sometimes we get a second order. And I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? I mean, what a career step. I can't measure anything. So I was really driven to understand the geospatial analysis of the relationship between where people live, who they are, and the types of brands that they buy. When I got to Crossmark, we were actually able to see that more and more, that we could identify stores that had a very high propensity for a brand, for the sales index. And at Crossmark, they have a number of proprietary data sets that will allow them to see a store's propensity to engage in retail activity. And they also can measure the relationship of the people who are selling into the stores. And all of that has an effect on the demand. So my mission now is kind of to stop the insanity, because I've been in a lot of organizations where we continue to do the same thing over and over and over, and we're expecting different results. And sometimes it's just time to stop. Next generation leaders need to courageously blow up the models that have delivered success. The world is changing too quickly to stand still and succeed. And I think that's so true of today's environment. It's just too fast. It's not going to slow down for us, and we need to rethink why we're doing things and what we're doing them. There's no two stores within a banner that actually operate the same way. They may say they're a clean store environment. They're not always clean store environment. There's a number of the stores within a particular banner that actually will engage in retail activity. And those stores, they do it for a reason. And part of that reason is because their shoppers like it. They expect it. So they kind of break the mold. But there's a tremendous amount of data now that's available that can actually help you really refine your list and identify where you want to go. And I'll give you Frito-Lay on the brand side. I was actually working with Tracy Locke with shopper marketing. And Frito-Lay had just gone through a tremendous redesign of the chip aisle, and you probably have seen it in a variety of different stores. It looks a little bit different. But when I was actually working with the head of shopper marketing there, he said to me, he said, Dorothy, now we have this great design. Where do you think we should go first? And I said, you need to go to the stores where you absolutely have to win. And if it's a blunt instrument, you do the 80-20 rule. That's where you start to divide and conquer, okay? But I'll tell you what, when you start working with the Divine 9 or the top 10, they are going to stall this. You will not get this implemented for at least 3 to 6 months. They're going to want to test and roll out. I said, you need to have two strategies. One is for the big boys, and they're going to put their footprint on it. And the other one is for the tier 2 retailers who will adopt this so quickly and put it in the marketplace so fast it'll make your head spin. And sure enough, the first place that actually put that redesigned chip aisle was Bilo in the South. So I just want to take you back and just remind you that it wasn't too long ago, the world was really simple, right? We all shopped at the local store. We probably all had 5 and dimes on the street corner. I'm not sure if you guys remember Rexall Drugs, a little 5 and dime. That's where I started my career in retail. Behind a 40-foot candy counter. I do not like candy today because of it. But we all bought the same things. You know, there wasn't a ton of selection back then, really. And then something happened in 1962. And this is going to play for about 30 seconds, and you can watch the year increase and the store count increase. And of course, because the color is blue, you all know that's Walmart's growth. And this is taken from a website called flowingdata.com. Where they actually put this together. But I thought this was pretty amazing. You'll watch it just cover the entire U.S. In a very short period of time. And that was the growth that was happening in this country. So, you know, planning. Think about planning against that, right? Stores growing everywhere. And then the rest of the market followed suit, right? Target did it. Walgreens has done it. CVS has done it. And they've redesigned and reinvented their stores. And quite honestly, from a demand perspective, the big hits in store today have pretty much been done. Just almost all of them have been redone in one way, shape, or form. And the way to win in store today is really by hitting a lot of singles, right, and connecting with shoppers. Because there isn't going to be a lot of redesign for the next 10 years. There's too much capital invested in it. And now we're actually going back to limited assortment, right? That's where the growth is going to be in the next 4 or 5 years, is in the smaller 25 to 35,000 square foot store. And from a planning perspective, what that means is they're not going to operate on the traditional category management framework, if you will. They're going to act more like the Costco's, where it's going to be quick in and outs. If you have a product that is as easy as 1, 2, 3, and it's systematized, you have to buy all 3 to kind of get the whole package, you might find that 2 and 3 don't get on the shelf. There just isn't enough space in a limited format store. And you know, retailers have become bona fide brands. They actually mean something to shoppers. People enjoy shopping in these locations for whatever reason, whichever one they choose. They have an emotional connection in there. And there was a study done a few years ago called Shopability that actually measured the emotional connection that shoppers actually have in store. And it was able to quantify that the more shoppable the store, the more time she would spend there, the more she would shop. So if she went in with a list of about 100 items, she would come out with 104. So that environment actually has a real stickiness to it. And knowing where those environments are very important. There's 22 square feet for every person in the US. This is the biggest retailer, Walmart, an area larger than Manhattan. That's a lot of square feet for every person as it relates to retail. And I want you to understand something. Think about that in terms of the law of averages. When you have 4,000 stores and your same-store sales aren't growing as fast as you want, some of those lower stores are actually dragging down some of your better stores. In fact, I had this with clients at Crossmark, where they were going through the whole delisting situation, right? And you know, you were lucky if you got a call. Then they started to get letters about getting delisted. But if you look at the sales of their product at Walmart, you know what? They weren't bad. You just had to look at the stores where they had really high performance, and there was relevance to them in the marketplace. But when you put your brand across all stores, you actually start to dilute it. I would tell clients, listen, only put it in as many stores as you are willing to get delisted in. Because when there's dust on your box top or the top of your can, that's equity, and it's not good equity. It is a subconscious cue to a shopper that says, you've been here a long time. I'm not so sure I want to pick you, right? That's what that says. About putting out POP or retail activity, some type of tactic, we're really starting to narrow the focus. And since our budgets aren't getting any bigger, right, we can really start to focus where our spend is. My point is, and this is just like in direct marketing, you start to drill down your list, right? And you get to the ripest area. And those are the ones you want to focus on because those are the ones that you actually can really win against. And from there, once you have that coverage, in direct marketing, you start to move out in very comfortable concentric circles towards the outer to find out, you know, where that win-loss ratio really is. And it really can help you identify and contain your spend. Here's a case study. This was 30 million pounds of butter for Land O'Lakes. They actually used these different tools to help them back into a successful year end. They knew at the beginning of the year that they needed to have 8,190 displays out in the fourth quarter. If they didn't get that, they weren't going to meet their numbers. And in order to do this, they leveraged the relationships of the people who were already in the stores, who already were in the dairy department, who were already having those conversations with the buyers, the people in store with the categories. And they kind of, for lack of a better word, they kind of greased the skids. They got that relationship going. So when they needed to get these displays in the fourth quarter, they had a full court press, and they were actually able to hit 9,400 displays. So they had a 115%. They exceeded their goals. But that took 9 months to actually go through that planning process, making sure the relationships were engaged, and making sure that they could actually get those displays in the stores that made the most sense for that particular brand so that they could win in the fourth quarter. So it was kind of a backed into it, planned into it. And when you calibrate that, you can really help drive your return on investment, making sure you're visiting the right stores at the right time for the right activity, and you're not actually doing activity that is actually more meaningless, for lack of a better word. And you can really make sure that your retail coverage is optimized to drive the highest return on investment. And really by closely monitoring the right activity in the right location, they were actually able to increase their sales by $2.3 million. And then really no two stores are alike. As much as Kroger would like to tell you that there's a clean store, they're not all clean stores. There's, in fact, a wide variety of them that are not clean stores. And it's not that they're messy stores. These are managers who actually have taken the time to understand the types of apparatuses in store that their shoppers like to use to actually shop. So they break the rules. And they put those in there, and it helps them drive their sales. So we had AT&T come to us before they were actually purchased, and they wanted to build 1,000 square foot stores. That was the number. And I asked the gentleman that we were working with, I said, how did you get to 1,000? What's the magic number? He said, well, we think that's what it's going to take. I said, well, if I put 750,000 square foot stores out in the marketplace and exceeded your numbers, would you be happy with that? He's like, yeah, but I don't know how you would do that. Well, I have a partner that actually does geospatial analysis. So we did a supply-demand index in Boston in 5-mile hexagon shapes. And we looked at the supply of all the cell phones of the competitor, of where their stores were, and then we looked at the attributes of the particular profile of people who actually bought their phones. And we were able to come up with a model that would help them understand, here are the corners where you need to be located. You have a high demand, there's low supply, it's right for your consumer, your target. And here's areas where I would not be looking for real estate. It's oversupplied, it's not going to help your business any. And we were actually able to do that and test it in Boston. We put in some of these stores for him, and the response was off the Richter scale.